I want to know how many people, I need to start on my smaller data set, how many people have read adventure books, or how many people have read fantasy books. So let's start with fantasy books. So this one is a slightly more advanced function because it's going to take two separate bits of information. It's going to get the range and something else. So we call them two arguments or two parameters. So I'm going to say equals, and it's count if. And so this is kind of like doing a if statement, but in Excel. So what we want to do is we want to count if, and firstly we say where are we looking? So the range that we're looking in, and so I'm looking at the genre here, so I can see in D2 to D9. So the first cell I'm looking at is D2, and I want to look at every cell from D2 through to D9. And so press enter. Oh, sorry, no, I don't need to do that. And then I press a comma because I want to show how many of them are a particular thing. So we said we'd like to count up how many of those people have read fantasy books. So how many times does the word fantasy appear? So how many times is there a cell with the value fantasy? So I write in fantasy, and because it's a word, I am going to use the inverted commas to put it around because it's text. I'm looking for a word. So there we go. Close the bracket and press enter. And I can see that there are 3, and that's right. I can see 1, 2, 3. Maybe I want to count how many students are 11. So that would be very similar, equals COUNTIF. The range I'm looking at is no longer column D. I'm looking at column B, which you can see here. And so the first cell I'm looking at is B2, and I want to look at all the way to B9. So B2 to B9. Then I put in a comma, and I want to know how many of my students are 11 years old. So because this is a number, I don't put the inverted commas around it. So I just put the number 11. Press enter. There we go. I can see that I have 4 students who are 11. Now, again, I could just eyeball that. I could say 1, 2, 3, 4 students are 11. And I can, that's not really very, you might think that's not very helpful. Why would I bother doing that? That's just overcomplicating it. Well, it really comes into its own when we look at the larger data set. So this time I want to look at how many people have read fantasy books again, but this is my larger data set. So equals, and it's count if again. I open my bracket. The range I want, it's that column D. So D2, 2, and I know that my list here has 101 rows. So D2 to D101. So I can just type that in, or I can click it. Then I put the comma, and then I tell it what am I looking for in that list, in that range. So I open up the comma, and I type the word fantasy. And it's important that we get like the capital letters right and things like that, because otherwise it is different. If we look back at our binary, it is different. So press enter, and there we go. Now there are 23. And the same if I'm looking for how many of my students are 11, equals COUNTIF, and it's B2, and we know there are 101 rows, so B101, and I'm looking for the number 11. Now, what I can also do is I could say, okay, I can see that all of my students are either 11 or 12. So I can put 11 here and 12 there. And I can say, okay, equals count if, and I know that my ages is in B2 to B11. So B2 to B11, oh, B101, sorry. And then instead of having to type 11 or 12 or a word, I can actually use the cell reference. So I've put 11 here. So that is in J2. Close the bracket, and you can see that there are 48 11-year-olds, which we know we got that correct. because we already calculated that over here. So then how many 12-year-olds do we have? COUNTIF. The range is the same, B2 to B101, and this time it is J3 where I have stored the number 12. So that makes it a bit easier for you if you had a lot of different things to look at, or you thought things might change. You wanted to change what you were calculating. So that's two different ways that you can use COUNTIF.